are masters of shaping the conversation. And second, while their big launches might not always live up to the astronomical levels of hype that they build initially, they do still usually end up being really nice products with a little bit of extra something that makes them feel special, and they usually also hit that sweet spot in pricing, so you kind of... Valpay has now built not one, not two, but three phone brands. Yes, I count Nord as its own phone brand, and I'll explain in a little bit why, but these three launches have shown us a pattern, a repeatable and repeated strategy that he uses to build brands out of nothing. If you are a phone nerd and old enough, you will have vivid memories of Carl launching his first ever smartphone brand in 2013, OnePlus. We're also in the middle of his new brand, Nothing, launching their first ever smartphone now, and I would argue that the OnePlus Nord was originally launched as a kind of independent brand with Carl's signature brand building strategy as well. Now, after Carl left OnePlus, the Nord brand got deprioritized and was rolled into the now very busy portfolio of OnePlus that I think even their own product managers can probably not keep apart anymore. But when it launched in 2020, it was clearly positioned as a fresh new start with its own brand identity, its own brand colors, separate social media pages and a separate website, etc. So we'll include that launch in here as well. Step 1. Announce not a phone, but first a supposed problem with the industry. When the OnePlus One launched, their early campaigns were all about how all the other Android phone makers sucked and how none of them made any good phones, like, at all. And to really drive this idea home, they even made people smash their existing phones for a chance to get whatever OnePlus would launch instead. When the Nord launched, they specifically called out themselves, basically saying that they gave up on making affordable flagship killers and made whole documentaries showing that this was a struggle. And with Nothing, Carl held a whole 20-minute plus launch event, in air quotes, just going on about how innovation is dead and how none of the phone makers ever do anything interesting anymore.
Consumer tech. How do we let it get so boring? We're here to change this. But today, all that excitement and all that possibility around tech, it's gone. And what have we got instead? Skepticism, apathy. Tech companies aren't on the consumer side anymore, and no one's innovating.
In fact, this sentiment is still kind of in Carl's Twitter bio. Let's make tech fun again, because currently it isn't. And all three of these campaigns ran for multiple months before the companies gave any details of their own products, so that these messages of discontent had time to sink in on their own and to engrave themselves into our brains. I mean, OnePlus saying that traditional phone brands don't innovate while being launched by Oppo, a traditional phone brand, or the Nord launch being sad about flagship killers being dead, when OnePlus and presumably Carl were the ones who actually killed their own flagship killer strategy, or the Nothing launch event saying that phone brands haven't innovated in the last decade or so when Carl and his team ran a phone brand for that same decade. But these are all a myth. Yep, still no products to be seen anywhere yet. Instead, once he drilled the supposed problems into our heads, Carl then goes on to create a myth, a core abstract idea for how he and his company will be the solution. For OnePlus, it was the idea of a flagship killer. For Nord, it was the return of value phones. And for Nothing, it is a phone that will finally become fun again. And at this stage, Carl even lets fans invest in his community. He picks a few as community ambassadors. He invites fans to join their headquarters to show that they're all in this together, and that with their community, this company can defeat the evil industry players. It's a bit like a tribal thing, almost like a religion, and at this point he has thousands of enthusiasts rallied around his shared mission. And then, step 3, the product. Yeah, no, just kidding. Step 3 is actually just highlights. Instead, the brand first picks out only the elements of their phones that fit this myth that they have just introduced, so people only judge and discuss those in a vacuum, often for weeks before the other details come out, which reinforces the idea that, yeah, this product and that myth, they are a match. They have to be. For the OnePlus One, this was a few early specs cherry-picked and released one by one that they teased along with an aggressive price way in advance. Those confirmed the flagship killer myth well ahead of its launch. For the Nord, it was a story told over many months through interviews and documentaries and teasers, showing the team struggling to make the right trade-offs to hit low prices. That confirmed the return to value myth without even giving a price away. And for Nothing, it's all about the design. They first showed some squiggly lines, then some partial renders, then some full renders, then held a random pop-up event in Switzerland where the phone was behind glass, and they invited only a few minor YouTubers so that the videos would almost organically leak all over the internet, and then they gave MKBHD an exclusive video with a selective embargo where he was only allowed to talk about the design. This low information role gets people to speculate and to create fan renders and to discuss this one feature that they really want to highlight, which again and again confirms the core myth of the phone. Microsoft, for example, famously did a selective embargo for the Surface Duo 2, where the media was only allowed to talk about how the phone looks and feels, not the whole product, which of course created weeks of positive content about how thin and light and beautiful it is and whatever, without really addressing the obvious issues that the phone had, which was step 4, the actual product launch for real this time. It's what the OnePlus One did, it's what the OnePlus Nord did, and in earphone terms, it's also what the Nothing Ear Ones did. They were all individually pretty good products, and they all did something a little bit different, just enough to make them stand out, but it turns out that unlike what the companies said in step 1, the industry is actually doing just fine overall, and you don't really need to reinvent the phone or Bluetooth earphone. Who tried to reinvent the phone and mostly got hammered when the actual reviews came out, pointing out that their wild ideas often didn't translate to real usability, or unlike Samsung, who tried to make foldable phones work and had some problems along the way, or Sony, who made earbuds with holes in them, etc., or a million other risky products, Nothing will take almost no major product risk at all, just like the OnePlus One didn't, and the OnePlus Nord didn't, and the Nothing Ear Ones didn't either, and they will likely release a very standard mid-range phone with some design tweaks that are maybe even pretty cool, and the slightly more aggressive price to make their thing feel fresh. And I mean, think about it. If another company like Samsung, Vivo, and Xiaomi showed up tomorrow and launched these exact earphones or this exact phone out of nowhere, people would go like, huh, yeah, that's kind of a cool design and maybe even a good price, and then they would likely never think about those again. First, Carl and his teams are great entertainers. Their instincts for what info to release and when are perfect. They always have great looking visuals, they are great at making content, and they are intentionally controversial. From making outrageous claims like nobody innovates, which then idiots like me go and make videos about, to Carl literally saying that he loves that their design is polarizing, or even retweeting people who are calling his phone an iPhone copy, Carl and his team keep forcing themselves into every one of our conversations. You can love it or you can hate it, but they